Tell the truth.
Information is power. Information is power. Information is power. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Information is power.
Information
is power. Tell the information is power.
Reaction has come.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please be
Information
sure to subscribe to his channel.
is power.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Okay, everybody, this is the Information Man Show. I hope everybody out there is doing well. Let me explain to you what just happened. Peace to you, everybody. Thank you for being on the program this night. First of all, before I move on with the presentation, let me make sure that you can hear me. Let me know in the chat room if you can hear me well by putting a 1 in the chat room. If the sound is okay, it's not scratchy, it's not making weird sounds, just let me know, because I can manipulate the volumes and things of that nature. If it's too loud, let me know. Am I coming through clear? I appreciate it. We've got Peggy Roster in the house. We've got Sister B, DJ Moss, Tiffany Jackson's come in. What happened is the first stream that I set up, I hit the button by accident when I wasn't ready to go on yet. I was double checking something in my system, and then it went on for about 3 minutes, and it went off. So I just had to go into my studio, change a few things. So, because I know people were in there waiting, so I appreciate the time that you spend to come over. We got Zone that's in the house. We got Miss Thompson in the house. We got EJ always. Wave Gang Radio that's in the house, which I appreciate you being here. We got LT with Facts. Thank you for being here. Now, what I want to do is I first have to give a lot of respect to a podcast. That's the Socks and Sandals podcast, because Jane Elliott, and I'm going to get into who she is. I know some of you may be familiar with who she is, but I'm going to get into it. They were doing an interview with Jane Elliott on their YouTube version of their podcast. It's called Socks and Sandals. You can find it on Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the things that I'm on as well. You can find their podcast, and I appreciate you all being here tonight. So I took some audio from the discussion that they had with Jane Elliott, and there's some things that really disturbed me that she said near the end of their podcast with her, their interview, because I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Black people, we have no allies. We got Young Peasy in the house. We got Lady B Unstoppable in the house. We got B1 for Life in the house. Appreciate you being here. We've got Wendell Bell Rose in the house. And it's right. There was a contradiction in what she said. So don't worry. I've got the audio. I recorded just enough audio to put perspective on what I'm going to talk about tonight. And then I've got Dr. Welsing, because she said something that the young brother brought up about the whole issue around genetic survival. She tried to minimize what he said, marginalize and underestimate what he said. And that's part of white supremacy as well. So I had a lot of problems with her because this is a woman that calls herself a pioneer. And I'm going to examine that and jump all over all of her contradictions by countering it with logic. So everybody do me the greatest favor tonight and share this in your social media. Share this with your friends, in your family. As I'm going to get into it because she did say some things about Native Americans. And you're going to hear it. And I've got the numbers. I got the data on that to put a perspective on everything. But let me once again say this as a preference. I already know that there's people out there listening to me tonight that are probably not going to like what I have to say, but I'm going to tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
And you can't stop this truth. I'm going to say it. There are people that are going to feel uncomfortable about what I'm saying that subscribe to my channel. If you don't feel comfortable, then you can unsubscribe from the channel. But I have to say the truth because there's a lot of contradiction with Jane Elliott. That interview on the Socks and Sandals podcast, I think she exposed herself for being the hypocrite that I always thought in the back of my mind that she was. Now you have white people out here that are involved in the protests as it relates to one George Floyd. Let me put that there. You know what I'm talking about. This is George Floyd. That's the mural that was created on the back of that food cup store, which nobody in their right mind should shop at that store. A complete dump I would put on that store. That store is bad luck. That's the epicenter of his death. So there are white folks out there that are protesting. We see what's going on in Portland. If any of you had a chance to see that Top Cop bar, you can tell that bar is doing everything to break the law and the civil liberties of people in this country. So you've got white folks that are out there protesting, saying Black Lives Matter. I get it. But when you ask people the most important question that you can ask them, which is, do you believe that black people deserve reparations? That's when people start doing a dance. They start moving around and trying to get away from the question. They start saying, what? Well, Jane Elliott, she did that. She took backward steps. We've got Earl Owens in the house. We got the Life of King Wage in the house. Appreciate all these beautiful black folks that have come in. We've got Jam on it that's in the house. We got Two Box Evolution in the house. Sister B in the house. Appreciate all of you coming through. She started doing a lot of dancing. And I got some good news for you all. The brothers who interviewed Jane Elliott from the Socks and Sandals podcast. I made contact with those brothers. They're going to be coming on the show, and I'm going to delve into this with them because they had the interview with her. So Socks and Sandals will be coming on the Information Man show. I'm trying to see if I can nail these brothers down for this upcoming Saturday, as I've made contact with one of the brothers. We got cheesy figures in the house. Information Man, so you don't think that you are promoting black supremacy with your demand on reparations. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, how can there's no such thing as black supremacy, cheesy figures, whatever the hell your name is. Because first of all, you have to have economic power. You have to have political power. You have to control the infrastructures of this society, the financial structures, the military. Black people don't control the military of this country. Black people don't control the institutions of housing, banking, and all areas of activity, as Neely Fuller Jr. talks about. So how dare you say that I'm contradicting myself with black supremacy? There is no such thing as black supremacy. For there to be black supremacy, we would have to be in control of white society. We would have had to have a history of over 500 years of enslavement, Jim Crow, redlining, manipulation of banking, stealing of land, stealing of everything. Black people have been in no position to be any black supremacy. This is what I'm talking about. As soon as I bring up the word reparations, I was going to say, that's why I kind of paused there for a minute. I was going to say patents. You had black people who invented things and had their patents stolen. A lot of you think that the light bulb was created by a white guy. No, it was a black man. He got his invention stolen. Most of what you see in America was created by black folks. You got an ice box at home, black people created that. You got an iron at home, an iron board, black folks created that. You ride on a train, black people created that and got their invention stolen. Let's not talk about unions. Why were unions created in this country? Because when black people came out of slavery into Reconstruction, white men were concerned about losing their place in getting jobs, because black people had all the skills coming out of slavery. We had the ability. We were locksmith. We knew how to build homes. We knew how to deal with agriculture. We had all the skills because of working in this country under slavery for over 400 or 500 years. So white men were concerned about their jobs being taken by black men, which is why they created unions in the first place, to protect white male workers. That's the truth.
Tell the truth.
Not to mention slave patrols. Black people have never created a policing system to oppress white people in this country. So how dare you say such a thing? Put that individual in timeout or block them the hell out of this channel. You're going to learn today coming over here with that bullshit. We got Gregory Harris in the house. Tisha, if I'm saying the name correct, 'cause I've been saying it wrong, so I apologize, sister. Tisha is in the house. Tone Malone is in the house. He says, peace, info man, in the chat room. Now, don't hide anybody from the channel if they're not saying anything detrimental, Peggy Roster. Because this is my experiment tonight. We need to hear the haters. They're going to be blocked out. Eventually, you're going to have to block their ass out. But we need to see the kind of hate that's out there when black people speak of things. And if CC was disrespectful, I appreciate y'all blocking him. But we need to see the degree of hate that people can come up with when black people simply ask for reparations. This is a damn shame. So let me give you a little bio on Jane Elliott, just for those of you that are not that familiar with her. Jane Elliott is an American diversity educator. As a school teacher, she became known for the blue eyes, brown eyes exercise. Jane Elliott promoted the idea that there is only one race, the relationship which is namely the human race. That's her perspective. She wanted to show her pupils what discrimination feels like and what it can do to people. Elliott divided her class by eye color, those who had blue eyes and those who had brown eyes. Her class by eye color, those who had brown eyes and blue eyes. On the first day, the blue-eyed kids and children were told they were smarter and nicer, neater, and better than those that had brown eyes. Blue eyes and brown eyes exercise, that's what she was doing. Jane Elliott, came to prominence when the day after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, she took her classroom of all white third graders in Riceville, Iowa. Wow, Iowa. Booney up there. What's the black population in Iowa? Can anybody put that in the chat room what the black population is in Iowa? And she decided to teach them what it was like to face discrimination. She separated the kids into two groups. Those with brown eyes, those with blue eyes, as I said before, proceeded to proclaim the brown eyes as the superior group. So she would switch it around. One minute she would say that the blue-eyed kids were superior. Then she would switch it around to the brown-eyed kids. Now, those with blue eyes proceeded to proclaim that they were brown eyes, the superior group. She allowed the group to exchange privileges. More times at recess seats in front of the room, they were told they were cleaner, smarter, and talented, as I had said before. Now, how the children reacted to this newfound pecking order was starting that the brown-eyed group immediately began to feel dominated. The blue-eyed group almost immediately slipped into the role of subordinate after switching roles a few days later, which gave birth to the side of the classroom a taste of being the lesser group. It gave them a taste of being the lesser group. The exercise ended. Many parents, after reading about what happened in Jane Elliott's classroom, through study, essays printed in the local paper, complaints. So people were upset about her doing this study that was made famous, and she became well-known. It got headlines. So she used the blue-eyed, brown-eyed test to show how people feel when they're being dominated by another group. That was her way of trying to say, this is how racism works. This is how racism works when you create a subordinate group to another group. And it's kind of interesting that she used blue eyes versus brown eyes, because if you know anything about recessive genes and about melanin, people who have brown eyes, darker eyes, our ability to see things and absorb things are a hell of a lot better with people who have colored eyes. They've done studies where they've taken children with brown colored eyes. They put them in dark rooms, blindfolded them to see how they can make their way through mazes. And they found that children or people who have darker colored eyes actually can see better, and it absorbs more, especially if you are a highly melanated individual. This is very important. I would say I studied this in college. I took a class in melanin and pigmentation, and we talked about the science of melanin. The instructor, Dr. McGee, who is no longer with us at San Francisco State University, he said this is not about saying that you're more superior to another person. He simply said, look at the science, understand the science, and you come up to your own conclusion as to where that science leads you and where it leads you. Now, let me go ahead and go directly, if I can, into the audio with Jane Elliott from the Socks and Sandals podcast. And peace to those brothers if they are listening to me right now. I look forward to having them on the show. So let me get ready to load this up in just a moment. Hang on, folks. Okay, everybody, let me get this set up right now.
I think if we're going to live in
let me hold this up.
and that's what we.
All right. Now let me start this from the beginning. And what I'm going to do, I will have the ability to stop it, to play it again, and compare and contrast. And I want everybody in the chat room to think about what she's saying from the very beginning. The brother from Socks and Sandals says, but Jane, don't you think that people are battling over these sort of things because they're looking at survival, genetic survival? Let's hear from Dr. Welsing, shall we?
Remember Attorney General Eric Holder.
Let's play this again. Let's go here with what she had to say. Oh, here we go.
And if you're the discussion of racism is not a preferred topic in our society. And if you remember, Attorney General Eric Holder raised the question, are we a nation of cowards, being unable to talk about racism? Racism, white supremacy, is the most powerful dynamic on the entire planet.
And it's the one thing that we don't ever talk about.
And it's the one thing, you see, and when people don't talk about something, it's either they are afraid to do so, or to talk about it will cause serious harm. I mean, once you understand the whys and wherefores, the in-depth reason for a whole oppressive dynamic, then the people have the keys to unraveling that dynamic and potentially replacing the unjust dynamic of racism, white supremacy with a system of justice. So justice meaning no one is mistreated, no one is allowed to be mistreated, and those who need the most help get the most help.
And that would seem to be, to me, an ideal situation. For some reason, it's not something that we adhere to.
One would think, but that is antithetical to the survival of racism as I have defined it. Like I say, that racism, white supremacy is a dynamic system for the ultimate purpose of white genetic survival.
Boom, right there. Right there. Excuse me if I scared anybody. Boom, popcorn, pop it now. She said it's a system, Dr. Welsing said it's a system of genetic survival. That's perfect because I'm going to go right into Jane Elliott's interview with Socks and Sandals, where the brother was trying to explain that, and she tried to minimize that, underestimate it, and undervalue it. So here you have Jane Elliott, who's been riding on this reputation for all these years as being against racism, white supremacy, being a champion of things of that nature, right? Right, everybody? She's been riding on that for quite some time. And so I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Jane Elliott, she put foot in mouth, she took foot out of mouth, put foot back in the mouth. And you notice the minute this young brother started to talk about those issues that Dr. Welsing talked about, she tried to shut him down. So as much as she talks about white supremacy and racism as it relates to white people, she actually showed her own bias, her damn self. Let's go into it right now. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, right now.
Then that's what we need to do. And
all right, here we go from the beginning.
Progress on the face of the earth is because of the brilliance of a whole lot of people of color.
Right. Jane, don't you think that what's going on and what has been going on is not necessarily ignorance because nobody told me any better? Because you just explained, and also I've seen in the exercises that you do, people just flat out deny their position, or that they've been, or that someone else's discrimination is worse than theirs. But doesn't this all come down to survival? You know, doesn't this really come down to the fear of genetic annihilation? If I allow myself, if I allow everyone that is melanated an equal playing field, a level playing field, then I won't be able to compete with them. I won't be able to stay in control.
Stop it right there. So the young brother is saying, doesn't it come down to genetic survival, which you just heard me play by Dr. C. Welsing, right? The great doctor herself, who left us the beautiful book, The ISIS Paper, right? And check this out. Jane Elliott is a teacher, but Dr. Welsing is a psychiatrist. So she's talking about the social in America, people have behaviors. I work in psychology. People have behaviors, and people still go back to those behaviors of what? Hunting, gather hunting, and survival. We do it in various ways. We go to work to survive. We want to be one step ahead. And when we're in school, we're always taught this mode of you got to compete to get ahead. Well, what do you think the word race means, ladies and gentlemen? It's a race between the different groups. Jane Elliott says that, well, there's no one race. There's just a human race. But if you look at historically, what has happened is that you have various ethnic groups and everybody's in a race. Remember the game King of the Mountain? Everybody's trying to fight to get to the top, and then there's always one person throwing you off. White people have been in that position where they're on top of the mountain, and those of us are trying to get up that mountain. They're throwing us off because they want to survive. Animals have a survival mechanism. Hell, even bugs and humans have a survival mechanism. And I'm going to continue on with what the brother was asking her, and you're going to see how she denounces what he's saying. You could tell it was really bothering Jane Elliott that the young man would even go there. Here we go.
And stay in my privileged, nice position, because no group wants to give up their privilege. And so isn't this about, you know what, if I keep them here, then I can survive, because I know that my numbers are down all over the globe. I know that we're not procreating and reproducing. I know that the sperm is low in males of European descent all over the globe, and it's been decreasing. Just like Brexit, I know if I continue to let immigrants come in, then melanated people are going to outnumber non-melanated people. They outproduce us. So isn't this more or less about genetic annihilation? Not just because I'm.
Wait a minute. Do you even think that the average person walking down the street even knows genetic annihilation?
No, it's subconscious. It's subconscious.
Wait a minute.
Okay, let me play this part. She's telling him, wait a minute.
We can talk about subconscious bias and conscious bias until hell freezes over, but that won't solve the problem. And we can use words of 4 and 5 and 6 syllables, and that solves the problem. You're going to have to talk in the language that the average human being in the United States understands. And here it is. You either change your behaviors today, or you're going to suffer greatly tomorrow. Now, if you want your children to survive in the future, you better change your ideas about miscegenation.
Boom. Let me stop it right there. See, this is what a lot of folks like Jane Elliott and her do. It gets back to reconciliation. Let's talk about it. So the brother is breaking it down and saying, well, people do this on a self-conscious level. And that's in a conscious level and a self-conscious level, which is true. People are trying to survive. and you don't want other groups to try to conquer you. And she contradicted herself because she even said in this interview that white people are afraid possibly that if black people were in control, that we would do to them what they have done to us historically in this society. And she doesn't want to deal with that reality that the brother brought up. She tried to minimize it into this, well, if we just talk to people and educate them, then this will stop. Wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get a witness in the chat room. Black people for over 500 years have been talking to the white society, telling white society that leave us alone. Stop burning down our churches. Stop burning down our homes. Stop killing our leaders. They killed Dr. King. You can't get any more peaceful than Dr. Martin Luther King. He had a non-violence movement and they took him out. So her whole thing is that if we just talk to people and warn them that if you don't do A, B, and C, then that's going to be the interview in the future. Black people have been blowing that trumpet through our entertainers, through our leaders, through our writers, our poets. We've been blowing that trumpet on YouTube as well. We've been blowing the goddamn trumpet. We've been blowing that trumpet for years. And it ain't working. It ain't working. It ain't working, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't working because didn't George Floyd say, hey, I can't breathe?
I thought he going people out there. Got him eat on the ground. He crying and shit. That's sick.
Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, somebody help me.
So I called BS on what she said. George Floyd, he said, I can't breathe. We found out that over 20 times he was telling the police, I can't breathe. Now, I get it. Her whole narrative is that, well, if you educate people, give people an education and understanding of other people, then that will stop people from harming you. That will stop people from engaging in racism. Wait a minute. Black folks have been doing that for over 500 years. Wait a minute. We got Black History Month, which shouldn't be in a goddamn month, and the shortest month of the year doesn't make any sense, ladies and gentlemen. We got Black History Month. Black folks have been talking about our history for years. You had black men that joined World War I, World War II. You got the Tuskegee Airmen. You had the Triple Nickel who fought in World War II. You've had black inventors. You've had Dr. Martin Luther King. You've had Malcolm X. You've had tons of black spokespersons and black people showing excellence and saying, hey, we're just like you. We're humans. We had the Buffalo Soldiers during the Civil War. We've had black people try to educate white people all our lives, and we still find ourselves, look, what happened to George Floyd, this whole issue that's happening in the country is bigger than George Floyd. This is about what has happened to black people over the years and decades. And it wasn't until COVID-19 and that people are indoors that they had a chance to viscerally see what was happening, that all of a sudden that people realized that what black people have been saying for years, we've been saying for years, get your damn knee off our necks. Leave us alone. Let us just have our pursuit for happiness and justice and equality. That has not been given to us. We got John Lewis, who just passed away, talking about good trouble. The hell with good trouble. I want no damn good trouble. I don't want trouble at all. Leave me alone. Leave us alone. The hell with good trouble. You wouldn't have to have no trouble if they wasn't messing with us. So there's history laden in this, which is why we deserve 110% the debt that this country owes us, which is reparations. I don't care what you call it. You can call it reparations. You can call it a debt. Just cut the damn check. That HR 40 bill is wasting our time because they want to get into studies and all this kind of stuff. So Jane Elliott, she wants to distract from what the young brother is saying by getting into this, let's all hold hands if we just educate. Black folks been educating. Why is it on us to continue educating white people in this country? It's not on us. You all have had the problem historically, not black people. But Jane Elliott, she's getting into this. What we need to do, we need to educate. No, you go ahead and continue doing what you've been doing, Jane Elliott. Continue to have your blue eye and your brown eye test that you had back in the 60s. And it damn sure shows us in today's society that people haven't been getting, even the white folks that you've been teaching, they haven't gotten it. So continue to have that test that you've been doing, because you can do it all you want. Reparations is due. Let's go back to this audio and hear some more of what she's talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
Because the hole in the ozone layer is getting larger and larger. And as the hole in the ozone layer gets larger and larger, more and more sunlight enters our environment, and more pale faces are going to suffer from melanoma, which is a skin cancer which can spread throughout your body.
Now, Jane Elliott is right about that people that are more melanated, we have a better chance of surviving in this climate versus people who have recessive genes and they have no pigment and what have you. Okay, that's just the way. Then there's melanin comes in all different forms. If you got black eye, if you have dark eyes, you got black hair, you've got what have you. You have some form of melanin. Some people have more of it than others. So she is right in that aspect of what she's saying here. And but you still got to read between the lines of what she's saying. So she already tried to minimize what the brother was saying that is based on Dr. Francis Welsing's ISIS paper, not theories, but I believe that they're facts. Okay.
So is it purely that? Because I was going to ask you, why does racism have to survive?
Well, racism, white supremacy is a conscious and or subconscious construct by people who classify themselves as white for their genetic survival. Whites are a tiny minority on the planet, and they're genetic recessive in terms of skin coloration. So let's say if everybody on the planet didn't pay any attention to skin color, and everybody just melded together, and in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, everybody loved one another, and that love was expressed in terms of sexual activity and reproduction, then white would disappear.
And what would happen then?
And so if the people who classify themselves as white do not want to disappear, then they have to set up certain kinds of patterns of behavior in all areas of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
That is so fascinating to me, because I'm always thinking, how did this all start? Like, what was the first person who got up and said, hey, wait a minute, this skin color thing, I got to keep this going, and let's hatch a plan to make sure that, like, I'm like, what rooms, I'm going through your book, and I actually went to the German piece back in 1942, and I went online and studied that, and we know what happened with Nazi Germany with the Semites and that whole plan. It was like such a diabolical but like plan that was working to perfection until Hitler decided, hey.
Okay. So let me go back into this right here. I want to go back to that real quick. Hang on, everybody. I'll be right back into that very quickly. And to everybody in the chat room, we got Brother Aduvian, Peggy Roster, Randy Sargent, if I'm saying that right. Some chicken named Star came in the house. Marquise Hill, if I'm saying your name right. Everybody, make sure you hit the likes. Make sure you share this in your social media, because this is very important. Let me get this back up here again like I need to. let me get this right back up here
You know
again.
what? France is looking
There
really
we go.
good to me in England. Let me expand my territory even more. And he got, and I think I often argue, had he just stayed in his lane, he would have been able to effectively do exactly what he set out to do.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, in your subtitle, it's the ISIS papers, the keys to the colors. You write that subtitle came from a statement made to you by a patient in Washington, D.C., public mental health clinic back in the 1960s, the late 1960s. You said the patient was a tall, thin, middle-aged, black-skinned man who, in a somewhat confused manner, talked earnestly to me about the problems he had experienced in his life. He said, "Doctor, if we could just find the keys to the colors." And he repeated it slowly. It was a statement I have never been able to forget, and this work is a portion of my response. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, I was a psychiatrist in training and thinking about what is causing black people to be mentally ill. I'm a third generation.
So as she said, she was looking at what was causing black people to be mentally ill. She's a third generation doctor. That's Dr. Welsing. Her father was a doctor, physician, and her grandfather going all the way back. And that's how she stumbled upon her theses and her research as it relates to the whole issue around genetic survival, white supremacy. And she realized that what was causing black people a lot of stress was the environment that we were living in, or the prison that we were living in called America that we're in, when we are subject to a mistreatment, which is why you have things happening to people like George Floyd, for example, Breonna Taylor, who, by the way, the police that killed her are still walking the streets, right? While they're sending federal secret soldiers to these cities like Portland or Chicago to mess with people that are protesting, right? Some that are protesting peacefully. So let me go back into the statements of one Jane Elliott.
Because you don't have any protection from the dangerous rays of the sun. Now, you can tell that to people in 1 and 2 and 4 syllables, and they can understand that, and then they can say, oh my God, maybe I better be nicer to these people who are going to be running this show in the future. If people your age, who are pale faces, want to survive to be my age, they better change their behaviors now. Because by the time you're my age, you will be in a majority group instead of the minority, color-wise, in this country. That's a fact. We have to stop. In the first place, we don't teach real history. We teach a lie that we made up to make white folks feel good.
Okay. Now, to her credit, she's absolutely right about what she just said right there. It's about making certain groups feel good. But she gets into the area of, well, if we convince white people, for example, that if they don't do good, they're going to perish in the future. Why is that the responsibility, I would say, of black people? That should be the responsibility of people like Jane Elliott to tell her people these things, which, to her credit, she has been doing the blue eyes and brown eyes test for many years, and she tours, or she goes around the country talking about these issues. I think she's written a book. She's been on talk shows throughout the years, many years. So she is a well-known person when it comes to the subject of race and these issues. But she's still coming from a premise in my mind that we simply have to convince them. And I'm saying to myself, I'm exhausted. We don't need to convince anybody of anything, because we've already done that through history. There's enough historical data to play that all out. And I'm just sick of us. We are always being asked to be the humble ones. Let's hear some more of this.
We don't teach history.
But being the majority doesn't mean that you have power.
What?
Being the majority has nothing to do with a power structure, a power dynamic.
Okay. So being a minority has nothing to do with a structured power dynamic that the brother was saying. Let's hear further what he means by that.
The pale faces in South Africa have never been the majority, but they have all the power.
but it can have something to do with it if you have if you have civilized and educated human beings, if you have people who know the truth instead of the lie, if you stop allowing your morals to be dictated by the picture of a white man hanging on a cross, that might be a step in the right direction if we would teach people that in the...
She's absolutely right there. I give her credit right there. The image of God or Jesus being a white man on a cross, which has been used to indoctrinate us in church, indoctrinate us growing up as children, that you will begin to identify with those that oppress you because you've been given an indoctrination from the time that you were born as a child that, in this case, white people are God, because the image of God or the Son of God is in the image of a blue eyes, blonde hair, Eurocentric image, which plays a big part on our psyche. There is no doubt about that. Let's continue on.
In the Bible, it says that Jesus had woolly hair and feet of bronze. We might think about that occasionally. This miseducation starts pre-birth and it continues until after you're dead.
Now, let me stop here because the brother was making this point. Her notion is that if white people don't recognize these aspects, that they are not the majority in the world, which Europeans are not the majority in the world. They are actually the minority. We have been given a trick bag in America because we call ourselves minority when we're actually a majority in the world. I know over the years, a lot of us have been stuck on this notion of whether we are 13% of the population. I've got to argue that I don't believe that black people are 13% of the population. And this is the reason why, because the brother said it in the beginning of the program. We are still producing children despite all the comorbidities and our health and all the issues that we deal with in our communities that are low on the social economic ladder. Now, I say that because not all black communities are poor, broken out of doors. We have black people that are rich, middle class, upper class, black people that are poor. And I mean poor, meaning they got nothing, right? So there's all these different levels to it. Now, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. And let me tell you something. I went through a neighborhood in Baltimore one time with my uncle, and God rest his soul, he's no longer with us. And he told me to lock my doors. I said, why? We drove to this neighborhood and it was a white ghetto, right? It was a rough white ghetto. It wasn't white people in trailer parks. They were in an urban setting. So a lot of times, especially when you live in the West Coast and certain parts of the country, you tend to believe, or we've been believing that black people are the ones, when you think about ghettos and poor neighborhoods, you associate it with usually black people. And yes, we are in those neighborhoods, but we forget that the biggest recipients of the welfare system are white people. Yet they made the image of the bag lady. Remember the bag lady, ladies and gentlemen? They made the bag lady, the image of the bag lady being a black woman who was what? Ripping off the government, taking the, the subsidies and things of that nature. And they'll make you feel ashamed. Even those of you out there who need the $600 because you're unemployed, there's nothing to be ashamed. That's your goddamn money. The unemployment checks, that's money that comes out of your check. So they'll shame you and try to stereotype us in that way. Okay? And so given those factors, and the brother was saying this, but yet white people have always been a minority in the world, but you're in control. Just because you tell a minority that if you don't get you some get right, white people, you got to get some get right, because by 2050, America is going to be made up of people that look just like me. And if you don't do something about it, you're going to be out of power, out of control. You're going to be lost. No, because if you go to South Africa, or in places in Africa, like South Africa, the majority of the people in South Africa are the black people, okay? The South African people that are black are skin tone like me and darker. And guess what? They don't control South Africa. Last time I checked, a lot of the South Africans out there are still fighting to get the land back that was stolen from them. Okay? So come on now. So this whole notion that somehow that takes them out of power because no, we have lots of examples of countries and places where Europeans are in control, but they do not represent the majority. They are the minority. So let's move on with the rest of her, what she said. I really want to get into the reparations part.
To make pale-faced people aware of the damage that is being done to them by their own ignorance. And I'd really love to say that we can solve this problem by talking about the past, or that we can solve this problem by making payments to black people. But if you're going to do it that way, then first you have to pay off the Native Americans.
Oh, no. This is where Jane Elliott puts foot in mouth, foot's out of mouth. You heard what she said. Well, I don't really know what we can do to fix the past. That's exactly what they always do. You get white folks like Jane Elliott that talk a good game. They say all the words that we want to hear, like white supremacy, racism. White people better get their shit together and stop being racist towards black people and other groups of people in this of color. They use that word color, which I do not like. And then when you ask them the magic question, what do you think about reparations, Jane Elliott? Well, wait a minute now. If you're going to give reparations, you're going to give reparations to the Native Americans first before you give it to black people. And matter of fact, we can't fix what happened in the past. You're going to hear Jane say that. I'm gonna move that back just a little bit, just to put some more sticky rice on this. And here we go.
By talking about the past, or that we can solve this problem.
Here, let me play this one more time so you can get some context. Listen.
Use until after you're dead. We need to make pale-faced people aware of the damage that is being done.
She says we need to make pale-faced people aware of the damage that has been done. That's a term that the Native Americans or the native people of this land would call Europeans when they came over. They would call them pale-face. However, another caveat to this history, not all black people came from the continent of Africa. We have evidence that shows that a lot of us are native to this soil we call North America. Black people are native. Matter of fact, if you understand anthropology, black people are all over the world where they dig bones, they do science, they find black bones. This has been evident. We're all over the world. If you are a melanated person, you are of dark matter, the whole damn planet belongs to you. Because how can it not? It was melanin. When you have the black holes and you have what they call the Big Bang, they've already done studies to show that that was made of melanin. So if black people are the most melanated people on earth, then goddamn we come from the damn universe. Because the universe God made created us. So that's why when you hear black people talk about original man, Asiatic black man, original woman, yes, we are original. Let's hear some of this, and then I'm gonna rebut her.
To them by their own ignorance, and I'd really love to say that we can solve this problem by talking about the past, or that we can solve this problem by making payments to black people. But if you're going to do it that way, then first you have to pay off the Native Americans, whose land we took, and whose homes we took, and whose people we killed in the millions.
Boom, let me stop right there. So she said we really can't fix what happened in the past. Sort of said that. She said, but if we're going to give reparations, his question really to her, because I heard the whole interview, and I'm looking forward to getting the brother on the channel to go deeper into this, her psychology. She made it a point to say that if you're going to talk about she never acknowledged in this interview that black people deserve reparations, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Jane Elliott, who does the blue-eyed and brown-eyed test, who talks about racism, white supremacy. She's on here telling this young man about how we need to educate the white folks before it's too late for them. And I've said to you, historically, we have always tried to educate white people as black people. When does it stop that when is it that enough is enough? Why do we always have to be the ones to educate? We've been doing that and we still catching hell. And that's just the truth. This is about truth, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing but that.
Tell the truth.
Now, she says the first people who need to get reparations is Native Americans. Let me tell you something that's very explosive right now to add to the content of this video tonight, this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Information Man Show. Native Americans, this is what they've been getting. And you're going to hear the young brother on there say, wait a minute, the Native Americans made their treaties. They cut their deals. It's on them whatever they didn't get or what they did wrong. Check this out. The United States government has agreed to pay a total of $492 million to 17 American Indian tribes for mismanaging natural resources and other tribal assets, according to an attorney who filed this lawsuit. This was in 2016, and guess what? Y'all's first black president, President Obama, that y'all love so much, who told black people he couldn't do nothing for us. Y'all's first black, y'all's first black president, Obama, he gave 17 native tribes $492 million when they applied for what was owed to them as the debt of the United States. Y'all's first black president. Okay? Obama. He gave them money. Now, for those of you out there that are saying, oh, Info Man, is that all you got? You can only bring up that's 17 Native American tribes. That ain't nothing. What you talking about, man? You ain't hitting on nothing. Shut your mouths. Shut your mouths before you wreck yourself, because I got more. I got more juicy details. And why, before I go into that, we got Greg Harris in the house, Earl Owens in the house, Tisha's in the house. We got Love in the house. We got Sandy in the house. We got Anthony in the house. God Rain is in the house. RY is in the house. And let me highlight this sister right here. I think it's Lana. I'm just going to say peace to you in the chat room. Peace to you right now, sister. There we go. Peace to you. I appreciate you all coming over tonight. This is fantastic. We got Chris World Network in the house. Brother Aduvian's in the house. Sister B's in the house. And we got the real Dana. Oh man, we got big time. We got a legend in the chat room, and the real Dana. She's a heavy hitter on her channel. Check the real Dana out. Appreciate you coming over, sister, and joining us in this discussion tonight. So I got some more juice for you all. Native American tribes. That was Obama, y'all's first black president. Our first black president. Even though the first black president of this country was a man by the name of John Hanson, who's in the back of the $2 bill in the government. It's a small little image of him. Do your homework on a brother by the name of John Hanson. He was the first black president of this country. Some say even before George Washington. George Washington, the slave owner who took the teeth of his slaves out of their mouth and put their teeth in his mouth. That's why he had crooked teeth. George Washington. It was John Hanson who was the first black president, not Barack Obama. Do your research. Now, Native American tribes were expected to see some long-awaited relief. Talk about COVID-19. Remember, they were saying that black people that we were the face of COVID-19. We got the comorbidities. We're disproportionately being impacted by COVID-19. Where is our reparations money? Where's the package and relief for black people? They're doing it for Native Americans. Check this out. Native American tribes were expecting to see some long-awaited relief money from the federal government trickling in as soon as Tuesday. This is up-to-date stuff now, black folks, according to the Treasury Department, but the battle is long from over, with no timetable set for the remaining funds in the court fight over some of that cash potentially going for profit and corporations. But on Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said hear me out, ladies and gentlemen, $4.8 billion, or 60% of the total of $8 billion initially set aside, will begin hitting tribes' bank accounts. The money will be distributed based on population size, with the largest tribe receiving the biggest share of money. Oh my God. And don't get me wrong, there are some Native Americans that are living on reservations and they're living poor, they're living in bad conditions. I get that. There are some tribes that are getting money and some that are not. I get that. There are some that are doing well and some that are not. I get that. There are some that are having tribal issues between who's going to get the money. I get that. However, you have ancestors, black people that were Native American, like my ancestor, O'Bain. I have an ancestor named O'Bain. My mother did the research. He was Native American, Chickasaw Native American, and we found records of him defining what nation he was a member of and trying to get money and land. But check this out. In the modern times, do you know that the freemen have been freezed out by many Native American tribes? Many Native American tribes who don't want black people who can claim Native American heritage to get any of this money. They're trying to block them out. Matter of fact, they have blocked them out because it's about that good old money. Now, I don't mean to bust your bubble, but I am going to bust your bubble, because during slavery, you had Native American tribes, Native Americans who hunted us down. They were part of the slave patrols where they were bounty hunting black people. Matter of fact, a lot of black folks like to brag about having, my great-great-grandmother had long hair, and so I got Cherokee. Well, the Cherokee tribe were very known for hunting down black people and also capturing us and bringing us into their tribes as slaves. So when Jane Elliott talks about black people, wait a minute, black folks shouldn't be the first ones to get reparation. It's got to be the Native Americans. Well, some of those Native Americans were hunting us down. Some of the Native American tribes had snatched us up as well and put us into servitude in their tribes. Oh yes, do your damn history. And now Native American tribes are getting $4.8 billion as relief as it relates to coronavirus. Now, has any of you heard the Congress or heard the Treasury Department? Hell, Steve Mnuchin didn't even want to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Black people were asking for Harriet Tubman to be on a $20 bill to remove Andrew Jackson, who was a terrible individual who brought Native Americans across the Trail of Tears into the southwestern part of the country. He went against a Supreme Court order, put all type of diseases in the blankets, killed Native Americans. So Native Americans have caught a lot of hell as well. Not going to deny that. But has there been anything coming out of the Treasury or out of this Trump administration that says, because black people are catching hell with COVID-19, let's give them a $4.8 billion package to help them? Now, I'm waiting right now. Can anybody in the chat room tell me, do we have a package coming from the government right now? Jasmine Virgo, good to see you. Somebody tell me, don't play around with me tonight. Do we have a package? We got the real Dana. She says, black suffering woes from COVID-19, but are not getting any financial assistance from the government, a giant reparations. Thank you, real Dana. So I'm going to ask everybody again, Are we getting any real dividends? Has the government either say yes or no? Let's be honest. Put yes or no in the chat room. Have you seen any package of that level that's going to Native Americans now for black people? And Jane Elliott says that Native Americans need to be paid reparations first. Let's hear it again before I go to your answers.
To solve this problem by making payments to black people. But if you're going to do it that way, then first you have to pay off the Native Americans.
Boom! They've already been getting money, Jane Elliott. Where have you been? You're not doing research. You're going to tell this young brother about how we can't talk about reparations for black folks because we can't fix the past. Wait a minute. Native Americans have been getting money for what has happened to them from the past and now currently. Let's see. Japanese got money for what happened to them currently in the past, and they didn't turn it down. And Jewish people got money in America because America was financing what was happening in Germany through what? Through Wall Street. And so they got money in compensation, not only in America, but abroad. And nobody says that we can't make up for what happened in the past. But when black folks ask for reparations, what's due us, we're told to be quiet. We're told, come on now, what are you talking about? You guys have made so many strides. You've got black entertainers, you've got athletes, you've got your rappers, your dancers. You got a black man that was in the White House at one point in time and Obama. Black folks are doing just fine. What are you whining about? And then you will have black people who will have the audacity on these platforms on YouTube to say, oh, that's begging. If you give black folks money, they're going to spend it all up. It's none of your business to be pocket watching what black folks are going to do. None of your damn business. I've got a problem with any black person who would set up here and say that we should throw away money that's owed us. I don't think anybody in Native American culture, Jewish culture, or even Japanese cultures or any cultures are turning down money, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see what your thoughts are in the chat room. So has anybody put a no? So most people are saying no. Jasmine Virgil says no. Let's see. The Life of King Way says money ain't worth nothing. Money's worth coming from the faith of the people. Right, brother. It's from the faith of the people. But there's what you say, brother, Life of King Wage, that a debt is still owed, though, brother. A debt is still owed. Let's see. Brother Aduvian says they get money while they want us to be their effing guinea pigs for the vaccine. Guinea pigs for the vaccine, yeah. And check this out. I've said this before. Be aware of the words that they're saying about, well, minority kids, black children are doing the worst educationally, so we got to send them to school first because they want to guinea pig our children to go to school first, right? So that if we get sick from it, they can make it all better for everyone else. They always do that kind of stuff. So let me continue this. Check this out. Ever wonder how much money the federal government allocates to American Indian tribes and communities each year? This is each year what they give to Native tribes and communities. Each year, it comes to about $20 billion a year. They give $20 billion a year or take a few $100 million and document it from the Department of the Interior. So if you go to the Department of the Interior, you will find out that they give Native American tribes $20 billion a year. Now, some would say, well, if they're dividing it up amongst those different nations, well, that's not a lot of money. Well, the bottom line is they're still getting something. Black folks have never gotten any $20 billion bill signed in law for us to get. So that you can find in the Department of Interior. Everything that I'm reading to you, that I'm breaking down here, you can research this for yourself. I'm not making any of this up. Tribes have been lobbying Congress to help address shortfalls in already underfunded healthcare systems and to assure the federal government fulfills its obligation to them under the treaties and other acts. While $10 billion for tribes in the 2.2 trillion package is less than they requested. This is another time that they requested money. The tribes say it represents progress. It's all the stuff you can look up. More than 1 billion will go to an Indian health services and federal agencies that provide primary medical care for more than 2 million Native American tribes. About half of that amount will go to tribes and tribe organizations that have contracts with the federal government to run their own healthcare facilities. So while we got black folks talking about we shouldn't be asking the government for anything because it's begging, you've got the Native American tribes going to the government and petitioning for money for health, money for the tribes every year that they get, money for health care, educational programs, all sorts of stuff. While when black people say, hey, you owe us a debt, everyone's telling us to be quiet. Everyone's saying, oh, we can't talk about that. We got this man sitting up here. What's this man here? Clyburn. Let me pull Clyburn up here with his silly self. We got Clyburn telling us, let me fade him on here, put him up here. We got Clyburn, who I interviewed Jamie Fowler on my show, who confronted Clyburn and said, Clyburn, you can't run away from this issue. This is an issue of reparations. This is no joke, Clyburn. And Clyburn told a black man who's supposed to represent black people in South Carolina, where black people are living very poor in the areas that he represents. Remember when he had Biden up there and they were talking about how people are living poor out there, they don't have access. This is what this man represents, that area. Well, Clyburn told Jamie Fowler, it's on video, it's on audio. He said, if you think you're going to get, you got to watch out. Like my man, Jason Black said, you got to watch out for these old Negroes. These old Negroes will hold us back. Okay. Now he says to Jamie Fowler, if you think you're going to get those reparations, you're going to be waiting forever. And then Jamie Fowler said, you can't run away from this issue, Congressman Clyburn. ADOS, American descendants of slavery, are everywhere. You can't run away from this issue. And then Clyburn touches him and Jamie Fowler says, hey, why are you touching me? So Clyburn, who was buck dancing for Joe Biden, when we've got Negroes in office like this, okay, we don't need enemies, ladies and gentlemen. We don't need enemies because we've got elected officials who are not doing the bidding of the people. They're not doing what the people want and what we're asking for. And it's a damn shame when we have our own people that are sabotaging our plights. So let me put back Jane Elliott. And I just wanted to put some perspective on there. When she says that we got to pay the Native Americans, the Native Americans have already been getting money. They already have people promoting them and caping for them and everything else. But there's no promotions and cape for black people. So Jane Elliott, as much as she talks a good game about race and racism and white supremacy, she has not done her own homework. Matter of fact, she marginalizes the question of reparations for black people. Here we go again. Let me put this on for your listening pleasure here. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Whose land we took and whose homes we took and whose people we killed in the millions.
Okay, black people had our land stolen. Black people were killed. Black people, we've been killed in 1,000. Black men were hung in the South like fruit on trees, as Billie Holiday would sing about in her songs, Strange Fruit. Black people were redlined. Black people were tortured. Black women were made to be baby makers. In Baltimore, Maryland, where I was born, Baltimore was a state where they had breeding, where they would breed black people. They would have even people that were kin to each other make men that might have been related to their cousin, make them have sex. They did buck breaking, where the slave master or the slave would actually have anal sex towards the black man and do it in front of everyone to show them that we can control your men and destroy your men, and they would always get the biggest and strongest black men so that other black men would think first about doing anything to violate, like escaping from the plantation. Okay, so we had black people that were murdered, genocide. We've had experiments played on us, like the Tuskegee experiment, where they put syphilis on black men. We've had black people that have been systematically killed and imprisoned in this country. We've had black people that have been gentrified by this system. And for those of you who say, well, what about black on black crime info? Look, black folks have always protested black folks killing other black folks. And I don't condemn what's going on in Chicago with any black person doing any harm to any black person. Don't condemn that. But black folks systematically have been killed in this country. I didn't even get to the communities that were killed in this country, that were destroyed, that were bombed, like Black Wall Street, or the rape of black children and women, the miseducation of our people, all the difference, not to mention the labor. And for those of you who like to talk about Native Americans, by if you do your research, Native Americans, okay, I'm being honest with you, Native Americans, and I know that there were black people that were native here. But when I say Native Americans, I'm talking about the Native Americans that we tend to associate with being Native Americans, that you grown up being culturally conditioned to believe that that's a Native American. I'm talking about that. They didn't build this country. It was the black people, the original people here, that built this country, who did the labor. See, Jane Elliott doesn't want to talk about that little part either. Let's go back into the audio.
No, they got paid. They got paid. And they have land.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
They have land. They have reservations, and they also.
She's going to tell this young brother, when he says that they've gotten paid and they did get land, she says, you haven't studied. The question was, the brother said they got land. We didn't say they got the best land. They didn't put Native Americans on the best land. Okay, they put them on crappy land. I will admit that. But they made them sovereign, and Native American tribes, they signed these treaties. I just read here not too long ago that they have a treaty with the United States that stands right now where they're supposed to get so much money a year. So like the brother says, they made their deals. But the thing that I noticed is that Jane Elliott was so hard bent on talking about the Native American to reflect away from the brother talking about what about the black man and black woman and black child as it relates to our reparations. Let's listen to some more. If you give us solid, you give us the littlest things, we can turn it into something big. Think about it. Black Wall Street, Rosewood, and many communities like that. They started with very little, but they built their own economic infrastructures. So black people historically have been in situations where we were in communities where we were striving and doing well. And then the only time we get knocked off our block is when white people historically come in and interfere with what we're doing. Okay, lottery. A lot of you guys play California lottery. You play 8-ball. You play the lottery in New York. Where do you think the lottery came from? They stole that from black people. We called it the numbers. They called it the number games back in the day. They took that from us as well. So every time black people do something that we create, gets stolen. So the brother is saying, well, the Native Americans had their chance. They got land. It wasn't the best land. And they made those deals. Black people never even got land. And I believe you, if we would have gotten some land, we would have had it popping. Because historically, when we've had a place to call our own, we've created something. Let's go back into the audio.
It depends on who's driving that car, who's the captain.
Go to a Navajo reservation and see if you think you'd like to live that way.
No, I've been to a reservation. I've been to a reservation in Montana.
Did you think it was a really comfortable place to be?
Say it again.
Do you think it was a really comfortable place to be?
The way that they were living, no, I wouldn't live like that.
Oh, well, okay. But
the whole planet is a prison for black people. So like it can't get any worse for black people. So you can't. I'm not.
So the brother says that the whole planet, as Neely Fuller Jr. always says, is a prison for black people. She's saying that the idea of us having our own land is stupid. He said that the Nation of Islam was asking for that, which is true, under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad. And she says that it was stupid. What's the one thing that we've always learned, ladies and gentlemen? The most important thing for black people to have is nationhood, land, and infrastructure. And part of having nationhood is to have land. And what Jane Elliott did is exactly what white people have always done. They never wanted us to have land. They said at one point in time, we're going to give you 40 acres and a mule. That was taken back. They never want us to have land, because when you have land, that is the closest way to getting to nationhood and infrastructure, because with land, you can build infrastructure. And with land, you can now have a nation to call your own, which is why Native Americans have what? They are sovereign. They have their own police departments within their culture that polices them. What we have in America is a slave patrol policing system that is designed specifically to terrorize black people. That has been the historical fact. Cannot be denied. Let's hear the rest.
I'm going to look at somebody else and say, oh, shoot, like, I don't want my own land. I don't want a shot at that. I would never say that. A black person is not going to say, I don't want to have a chance to create my own civilization and my own society. Everybody wants that chance, and everybody deserves that chance. And black people deserve reparations in the form of land, in the form of cash payments, and in the form of some type of tax consideration.
Boom. I like what he said. Land, cash payments, in a form of tax considerations, meaning we shouldn't have to pay any goddamn taxes, right? And I love what this brother is saying. That's why I can't wait to get him on the show. Hopefully this upcoming weekend, if I can get him. He sent me an email. That's the Socks and Sandals podcast. I can't wait to talk to this brother and really open this up further. So he said very important things. Native Americans had their shot. They get land. Not only are they getting their shot, I just read documents here. Native Americans are getting $20 billion annually. Okay? They're getting ready to get about $4.8 billion towards relief because they're catching coronavirus. Black people we don't have any relief package for black people. And black people are not getting $20 billion a year. Black people are not getting casinos from the government subsidizing them. Okay. Black people didn't get $492 million to us from Obama that he gave to 17 Native American tribes. Okay. Black people are not getting $1 billion, which has gone to Native American health services. There's no $1 billion going to black people for our medical services. Come on now. And don't get me wrong. I know that Native Americans, for the most part, don't live on luxury land, and the reservations are not in great shape. They're living on poorer land. They're stereotyped. We use the image of Native American people as mascots for football teams, baseball teams, all sorts of teams. So they have been treated as an invisible people. Totally get that. Understand that. I got Native American heritage myself. I respect that. But this is on principle. Black people who are native to this country, born here, who come out of the South, who come out of the slave plantations, out of the cotton fields of Georgia, the cotton fields of Alabama, all these damn places that come out of that. This country owes a debt. They seem to have no problem with giving it to anyone else. Jane Elliott had no problem with saying what she said, but when it comes to us, let's listen to some more of this nonsense.
So yeah, it may not have worked out for the natives, but this is 2020. And this is a totally different group of people. And everybody is not the same. Everybody's leaders are not the same.
Okay. Did you all hear her say the word bullshit? See, I'm exposing Jane Elliott tonight. Let me move it back so you can hear. When he said those things that he said about the money, the land, and all the things that black people have not been afforded as far as our reparations as ADOS, you can hear her under her breath say bullshit. Let's listen. I'm going to move this back. I need y'all to hear it.
My own civilization and my own society. Everybody wants that chance, and everybody deserves that chance. And black people.
Let me say peace to Fly C Soldier in the house. I'm definitely interviewing that brother too. Let's say, I'm just going to say shout out to everybody in the chat room. You know, if I'm not calling out everybody individually, I apologize. I'm trying to stay on point with this presentation because I want to get to a conclusion because I don't want to hold y'all all night. I know it's late across the country, but let me get back to this audio because I want y'all to please just listen to the word that she used when he said what he said near the end. You could hear her say under her breath, bullshit. Here it comes. Just listen, please.
Deserve reparations in the form of land, in the form of cash payments, and in the form of some type of tax consideration. So yeah, it may not have worked out for the natives, but this is 2020. And this is a totally different group of people. And
right there, did y'all hear it?
The same. Everybody's leaders are not.
Did y'all hear that? She said, how many of y'all in the chat room heard her say the tone? She said under her breath, bullshit. If you heard that, put a 1 in the chat room. Let me move it back just slightly because I want y'all to hear that. Tell me if y'all heard her say bullshit. Somebody, I think Sister B said I heard it. Let me see Jane Elliott. She's been riding off the blue-eyed and brown-eyed test that she's been doing for years. She talks a good game. She says all the things that we want to hear, black people. But when it really comes down to the nitty-gritty of her being down with black people being compensated for what we say, she talks about discrimination and how white people better stop doing what they're doing. But when it comes down to compensation, she does the same thing that other white people do, and that's say, oh, well, we can't go that far. So she's no different than the very white people that she says are racist towards us when it comes to these issues. Let's play that again. I want y'all to hear that again.
Land in the form of cash payments and in the form of some type of tax consideration. So yeah, it may not have worked out for the natives, but this is 2020. And this is a totally different group of people. And everybody is.
She said bullshit. See, Jane Elliott. Woo! Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have, hear me out, hear this broadcast. We have no friends. We have lots of enemies. And we have wolves in sheep clothing acting as if they are on our side as an ally and can talk all the good game to make you say, wow, this white woman is a bad mama jamma. But then when you really get them to deal with that question of reparations, they start going right back and resorting back to their tribe. They start saying, oh, you're going too far, black people. Let's hear some more of this. And it's going to get nastier. Listen.
It's not the same. Everybody's leaders are not the same. And so I'm not going to judge, or I'm not going to project onto black people in America, well, if this is what happened to the natives, you don't want that. And I'm damn sure not going to say, well, we need to pay the natives. Natives already got paid. They already made their deals. They already signed treaties. They've already done what they did. And if they squander their opportunity, that's on that group. Now it's time for this group to get its opportunity and to get its reparations.
But you are saying exactly what I have heard white politicians say. We got ours, now you got yours.
Boom, right there. I'm exposing the hypocrisy tonight. I'm exposing should I clap? I'm exposing the bullshit, ladies and gentlemen.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
The bullshit is being exposed tonight. She said, the young brother says that other groups have been given land and opportunity. Black people have never been given the opportunity to have our own land. We've never been given a reparation. We're certainly not getting $20 billion a year. We're certainly not getting $1.8 billion towards the fact that we've been most affected by COVID-19. So the media said, but we're not getting any package. We're not getting $1 billion specifically towards our health issues as the Native Americans are. And some of you out there are going to say, oh, Info, you're race baiting. You're trying to do a divide and conquer. You're not supporting our Native American brothers and sisters. I'm just telling you the facts. This is what they get, and we get nothing. They've even lobbied Congress to get $10 billion, and they got it. Even though they had the lobby, they got it because of treaties. Fulfilling the obligation to them under the treaties. Black people, we've got no treaty deal. We get nothing. We get nada. We bring up these issues, people laugh at us and say, what are you talking about? Now, Jane Elliott is telling this brother that you sound just like white men who talk about I got mine, you get yours. What are you talking about? Black people haven't gotten any damn thing to be able to say, I got mine, you get yours. We haven't gotten any goddamn thing. Native Americans have. Other groups have that have been oppressed in some way or another. And when black people say, hey, what about us? Then Jane Elliott wants to use white racist talking points, the very talking points that she talks about. She uses those same talking points to try to put this brother down by saying, bullshit, you're acting just like the white men that I talk about. Wait a minute, Jane Elliott. You got yours, so I got mine, you get yours. Black folks haven't gotten any goddamn thing to be able to make that type of statement. Does anybody disagree with me or agree with me in the chat room? How can we why are you comparing us? And this is the trick game that people like Jane Elliott, the so-called allies, this is what they do. Oh, well, come on now. Let's not talk about black people having reparations. Native Americans should get it first. You guys don't need it. When you talk like that, you're talking like the white men that are saying, we got ours, you get yours. What the hell are you talking about? We're not in that power position. White men can talk like that because they're in a power position. They control the economics. They control the institutions of this society. They control the financial institutions. What are you talking about? We're acting just like them. No, it has to be a power dynamic. We don't have that power dynamic, Jane Elliott, but you're supposed to know that. You've been talking this talk for years and you don't know that? Let's hear some more.
Hard to get what we have. We suffered.
Time for this group to get its opportunity and to get its reparations.
But you are saying exactly what I have heard white politicians say. We got ours, now you get yours. We worked hard to get what we have. We suffered to come over here. We were willing to kill people in order to have this land. We got ours the hard way. You get yours the hard way. You're saying exactly the same thing. You're saying the same thing that palefaces have said to Native Americans, and they're saying it to you.
You hear that? You hear her bullshit? You're doing it. So now she's comparing the black man to the white man who basically is the very one who stole this land in America. I'm sorry. I know there's people out there who don't like what I'm saying. They're probably going to unsubscribe. You go ahead and do it. I'm going to tell the truth. You've got white men who came over here, Europeans who stole the land from Native Americans, yes. And some of those natives were black people, by the way, who were already here. They didn't come from the continent. They already were here because we're all over the goddamn world and globe. So you're comparing black people to white men who have had all the goddamn advantages over the years. All the advantages go their way financially, societal advantages, and you want to say, well, when you start talking about reparations, you're sounding like white men, racist white men. How can you make that comparison? The two don't even go together, Jane Elliott. I'm calling bullshit on you.
And now you're going to say it. This is not the solution to the problem. Until we start saying to ourselves,
she says, this is not a solution to the problem if we're asking for some type of financial payment that other groups have gotten that have a history of suffering in this country. Unbelievable. And if there are other groups out there that have been, because people are going to say, well, what about the Irish and the Italians? Whatever America did to you, you go file your complaint. You go file your reparations package. This is black folks over here filing our demands and making our demands for what is owed us. So whatever happened, because this is the argument that people always use. Well, what about the other people who when they came over here to America and they struggled too? Then go file your goddamn agreement with the country you came from or America if you got any damn agreement. Then you're going to have people that are going to say, well, white people that are living today had nothing to do with slavery. We didn't benefit. We didn't do it. That's the biggest. You always hear people say that. Guess what? You benefit. You benefit from what your ancestors did. It gained you generational wealth. It gained you a advantage. Like I said earlier in the stream, unions in this country were created to protect white men and to make sure that they got jobs that black men did not get all the damn jobs, because when black people came out of slavery into Reconstruction, black people, particularly black men and black women, we had all the labor skills that white people didn't have because we were doing most of the goddamn work in building this country. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that, Sister B.
Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat.
The truth is coming down like a avalanche. That's right. This is about truth.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
You goddamn right. It's got to come down like an avalanche because truth has to be told, ladies and gentlemen.
Tell the truth. Information is power.
So Jane Elliott is a hypocrite in this sense, because you hear her saying that going for our reparations is not the right way to go. The right way to go is for us to say, please treat us well. Let's have understanding. Let's all hold hands in a rainbow bright and say, we shall over. Them days is over. I'm sorry. Them days is over. And we got my man, Real Aaron Collins, who super chatted me as well. I really appreciate that. He says, salute information man, my brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you for the super chat, Real Aaron Collins. Thank you for, and make sure you all share this video in all of your social media. Share this video with your friends, family, and loved ones, and make sure you hit the likes, because you know that helps the algorithm. We got 105 people checking out what's happening tonight. That's a fantastic. I wasn't expecting that many people on a late night, on a late Tuesday night, but that's fantastic. Maybe I should go live at this time more often. But we're getting close to the end of this presentation. Let's hear more of what she says. So she already said that's being like white men. So she's comparing us to white men now. And all we're asking for is payments of reparations due us. And she jumps all over that, man. And you heard her say when he was talking earlier, the word bullshit. So she's basically showing you her true colors. So when you hear Jane Elliott getting on television and getting on other YouTube channel programs like the Roland Martin Show, because he interviewed her, and I bet you any kind of money that I doubt if Roland Martin asked her about what she said to this young brother, if he even seen it. But she was on the Roland Martin show, his show on YouTube, talking all that good game, but I'm exposing her ass tonight for the hypocrite that she is when it comes to this issue. Let's listen.
Look, every one of us deserves to be treated fairly. We're going to treat one another fairly starting today. We can't fix yesterday, but we can arrange.
That's what they always say. We're going to start treating everyone fairly. We can't fix what happened yesterday, even though you benefit from what happened yesterday, Jane Elliott and everyone else. Now, that's some real bullshit right there. We can't fix what happened yesterday, but we got to all start working. Let's hear that again, because I have a point to make to what she just said. And here we go.
To say it, this is not the solution to the problem. Until we start saying to ourselves, look, every one of us deserves to be treated fairly.
Boom. Right there. She says, every one of us deserve to be treated fairly. First of all, black people have not been treating white folks historically unfairly. Let's see. We didn't push white people out of housing. We didn't keep you out of jobs because of how racist things were. We came from shackle slavery into Reconstruction slavery, where they created laws to keep black men and black women from being able to be successful in this society, or to be able to take part in the fullness of the society, right? And to live up to its liberties, right? So the point that, like I said, they created the unions to protect white men. So, and when the civil rights movement was getting going and they put that in action, white women were the biggest benefactors of the civil rights movement. It benefited white women who, white women could not vote. They were upset because they gave the black men the right to vote first. And then this is the history. Then when you go to a state called Wyoming is known as the equality state because the women went on sex strike. The white women withheld sex from their husbands, demanding that they have the right to vote. And the men went buck wild because they said, ooh, we can't go without sex. And so eventually they gave the women in Wyoming the right to vote. So that was the first state in this country where women, but it was white women, who had the right to vote. They were not very happy about the black man getting the right to vote first. And that's a fact. In black women, because they didn't give our women the right to vote first, and then later on behind us, our women got the right to vote. So you had a lot of sexism going on with the racism and every goddamn thing else. But Jane Elliott, if we just treat everybody fairly, black people have never been in a position to be able to do something that affects the economics, the livelihood, the housing, the job opportunities, the economic opportunities, the banking opportunities, the expansion of your business opportunities. We have never been in that position to do something unfair to white people. So why do you put us in that trick bag? Last time I checked, and I brought this up again, look it up, everybody. White people who have a existing business versus black people who have a existing business who are trying to expand their business. Black people get turned down 54% when it comes to getting a business loan to expand their existing business. White people get turned down 24% to expand their existing business. So you see the disparities there that still goes on today. Jane Elliott, as you say, we got to treat everybody fairly. We're not the ones getting treated fairly. George Floyd did not get treated fairly when he said, I cannot breathe. Philando Castile did not get treated fairly when he got shot saying, hey, I'm in an open carry state. I got a gun. I'm going to show you my license and my license to carry. Breonna Taylor did not get treated fairly when they lied and said that she had drugs coming to her house. Come to find out the ex-boyfriend was already in jail. They lied and said the post office said it. The post office said, no, we didn't. Those men are still walking around. Trayvon Martin is gone because of that. So who the hell is really getting treated unfairly, Jane Elliott? Let's go on.
We're going to treat one another fairly starting today. We can't fix yesterday, but we can.
Oh, yes, you can.
To be better.
No, Jane Elliott. You can fix yesterday. all you got to do, and I'm going to say these beautiful words, cut the damn check. You can fix yesterday for black folks by paying us for what you did to our ancestors, and paying us not only for what you did to our ancestors in slavery, but for what you did to our grandfathers and great-grandfathers when you stole land from them, you redlined them, you kept them out of job opportunities, when you did environmental racism, where you put black people, when you talk about Native Americans being on the worst land, wait a minute, black people were displaced on some of the worst land that we were living in some of the cities in this country. I think Tariq talked about this. You had thriving black communities in Los Angeles throughout this country. And then what do? They build freeways that they ran right through some of these black communities, that destroyed black communities that had businesses, by putting freeways and doing all types of redlining and unfair business practices with black men. This is stuff that's happened in recent time. You ain't even got to pay us reparations for. So for those of you who say, well, how are you going to identify who was a slave? You ain't even got to use slavery. You can deal with what happened to us in the 1970s, 60s, 50s, and 40s. That shit ain't no ancient history. We got the results of that today. Let's hear some more of the bull jive here.
Every single one of us. Jane, and you cannot have a civil society as long as you are behaving in uncivilized ways. And that's what white people are doing right now.
Okay, I give her credit there. She said that's what white people have been doing right now historically. I give her that. But where I still fall short with her is that she jumped all over him in the simple, just a simple thought and word of reparations really got under her skin. Let's continue.
People of color are trying to teach them how to behave, and we refuse to listen because we think they are inferior to us. We're wrong.
After, like, once again, I'll go back to this question. After 500 plus years of stealing, killing, and destroying, subjugating, exploiting, and exterminating people, what do white people deserve?
Well, if they got what they deserve, they wouldn't still be alive, but we don't get what we deserve. We get what we ask for. And what we got is
She says that if that was the case, that they would not be alive, that they get what they ask for. So once again, she contradicts herself because she says that white people get what they ask for. Okay, if black people are saying we want reparations, why was that a problem for Jane Elliott to deal with that question of reparations? Why did that get her hot under the damn, maybe she's got the pins on or something. She's about in her 80s. Why would that make her hot under her seat? But then at the same time, she says, well, when he says, well, what if, what do white people deserve? And she says, well, I don't want to get into that because they wouldn't be here if they got what they really deserve. That's what Jane Elliott said, white woman. But she says, but white people, we don't get what we deserve. We get what we want. So it's okay for white people to get what they want, but it's not okay for black people to say we want reparations. And the thought of that got her very triggered. And you all heard it. And if you ever have a chance to see the Socks in Sandals podcast, because they're on YouTube too, you can see the full video if you haven't already, and you can see there was body language that went along with some of the bullshit that she was saying in terms of as it relates to black people in reparations and the whole issue around what Dr. Welsing was talking about when it comes to genetic survival issues. Let's hear the rest of this. We're almost near that conclusion, ladies and gentlemen. Hang in there with me.
It's a country that is split down the middle because of the ignorance of people who would vote, either refuse to vote at all because they didn't like who was running, or who would vote to select this fool. And right now we are living with the consequences of our behavior. If you sow the wind, you will reap the whirlwind. And that is exactly what is happening to people in this country today. We are in deep doggy doo-doo because of the way we have behaved in the past, and because we put in place somebody who doesn't know enough to, we won't talk about that, but the man is danger, and we have selected a man who is dangerous, and we have members of the Senate who will go along because he can decide whether they get money for their campaigns. They know what they're doing, and they know what he's doing. And this is terrifying to me that we don't.
Let me stop there. So she goes into Donald Trump, and we already know what Donald Trump is, so I'm not going to espouse into that. But she went into those other areas. She made some points that were good points when she started to break down this whole thing about the hate and all of that. But I still don't understand why. Well, I understand why she didn't want to deal with reparations, because reparations is holding white America in this government accountable for what they did to our people, our ancestors, and our current living grandmothers and great grandparents and those that have passed. So it's a way of holding them accountable, but it's also a way of giving us economic power and empowering us economically that they have a problem with, because they know that if you give black people that kind of opportunity, we're going to be able to run circles around a lot of people. Black people were doing this. Black Wall Street, and there were many black communities that were more well off economically than some white, because they pulled their resources together. And I would argue that that's one of our biggest problems today, is that we don't pull our resources together like we should. We don't support black businesses like we should. That's my opinion. We need to do more to support each other than we normally do. Fly Seas Soldier says, keep exposing them. Didn't know Jane was like this. Information man. Yeah, we see. And who's the other? There's another white guy who talks a good game as well. What's the other guy's name? When they talk a good game like this, you always have to catch them on the most important question, which is reparations. The young brother from the Socks and Sandals podcast was brilliant. If he's listening, you were brilliant, brother, because he asked the right questions and said the right things that allow us to see the underlying nature of Jane Elliott, because she showed her white supremacy because she was so busy trying to tell that brother what he needs to do and what he needs and what black people don't need and what we need to do. That has been the problem for decades. Always telling black people what we need and what we shouldn't go for is none of her damn business. What we need is to do exactly what that brother says. We need to go for the reparations. Jane Elliott is hiding behind her, oh, I'm against racism. But when he asked a power broker question, she resorted back to what a lot of white people like her do, which is deny black people of reparations. And then she tried to make the comparison. I must drive this home continuously. She tried to make the comparison that would be behaving like white men that are in power. That's bullshit, because black men don't, or black women, we are not in a power dynamic or control in this country. So that puts to rest everything that she said from that perspective. So that's why when you have people like Jane Elliott talking, they sound good. They make you feel good because you say, wow, a white person's talking like this. Unbelievable. But whenever you get them in tough situations where they got to answer the big, they give you their true nature. And that's what she did. And I don't even know if Jane Elliott herself realized how she made herself look bad, because why would you say that? She said, first, we got to give reparations to Native Americans. Okay. But yet they're getting it already. But she never turned around and said, okay, yes, we got to give reparations to black people that are ADOS. And we also got to recognize Native Americans too, because we got black folks that's Native American. So she never said that. It was just Native American. We got to give it to them first, even though they're getting shit, and I read it off tonight. But when it comes to you black people, you got to be more about trying to convince people to be good and be wholesome, empathy and sympathy. And we got to convince people to do right. And if we just convince them to do right and educate them, everything going to be all right. Hell no, Jane Elliott. Black folks have been singing that song already. We already done that, been there, done it. It's a new day, 21st century. We're not tap dancing for you. We're not buck dancing for you anymore, even though you got a couple black conservatives out there that do a lot of buck dancing. We're not going to buck dance for you. We're not going to sing the song. We're not going to bring you that iced tea. Miss Jane Elliott, here's your iced tea, ma'am. We're not bringing your iced tea. We're not going to be your butler. We're not going to be your goddamn doorman. And we're damn sure not going to be your goddamn chauffeur. This ain't no driving Miss Daisy. Them days is over. Done. We ain't going back to that. And so she exposed herself. I appreciate everybody coming out this late night and joining this this broadcast tonight. Once again, I need you to share this and throughout your social media. Let me give you a little bit more taste of Sister Dr. Welsing before I get out of here. I want to let you hear some other things that she said. And here we go. Oops.
White supremacy, black males being killed by white males with guns.
Yeah, chapter 15, the symbolism, logic, and meaning of justifiable homicide in the 1980s. This book, by the way, was written in the 1980s. So what you're saying to me is even more poignant as I was rereading this chapter 15 last night. I'm like, wait a minute. This is still going on, and you break down how this system of justifiable homicide as it relates to police officers and black males in particular in the society came about. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because Ferguson today, they had a march yesterday, actually this weekend, and I'm going to talk about that later on in the show. But yeah, that's a hotbed right now. That topic is, and everyone thinks it's new, but it's not.
See, it's not new. It's not new at all. In other words, the dynamic of racism, white supremacy has been black people's experience for the last 500 years.
So you heard with Dr. Welsing said that's been our experience. And this was an interview she did in 2014. I actually have the full interview on my channel. So if you go deep into my archives, you'll be able to find this video and the whole full interview. Reason why the interview is special, because, she passed away and God bless her soul as an ancestor. I hope she's transformed into another dimension of the fifth dimension, another place in the universe, because I don't believe when you leave this physical body that you really did. You just go to another level and elevation. And I know that her elevation was high vibrations. But before she left us in this world that we're in, this third dimension that we're in, she said that all of this stuff that we're dealing with today has been going on then. This was her last interview, one of her last interviews that she gave before she left this world that we're in right now. Very powerful woman. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Welsing, no doubt about it. Let me give you a preview of where I'm going to be going in my next show. I will be going live to talk about John Lewis. John Lewis and C.T. Vivian. I have a beautiful podcast or video to break down the fact that we live in a country where they take black people and they make it about black leaders or individuals, when you could not have a civil rights movement without the people. And I've got a beautiful audio from Ruby Sales, who was there. And she said that it was the people who made this movement go, not individuals. And she was saying that in European culture, They look at their history from individuals. That's why you have statues like General Lee, Despicable General Lee, George Washington, Despicable Ass. They look at their history through individuals, rugged individualism. Black people, we have to look at our history through the eyes of the culture of all people. I am because you are, we are because I am. It's a collective, not an individual. So that's going to be my next program, talking about John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, who died the same day as John Lewis, but very little was talked about C.T. Vivian, which to me is a damn shame. Here he is. So I'll be contrasting these two men, but that's going to be a live stream that will be coming up. So I'm just giving you a preview of what is coming very soon down the pipeline. So I need everybody, thank you for all coming out to definitely share this in your social media. I thank you for being here. I may or may not be, I think I might be on Twitter or Periscope Live right now. I may or may not be, I'm not sure. Working with some new software here. I got lots of things coming down the pipeline, everybody. And like I said, the young brother that you heard talking on the audio tonight, I'm going to be in touch. I've already been in touch with him. It's a matter of us setting a date. I'm trying to see if I can get the young brother to join with me this Saturday to go into depth about his podcast, his own impressions of Jane Elliott and what she had to say, because we heard tonight under her own breath, when the young man was talking, I felt that she was disrespectful to him by saying under her breath, bullshit, when the young man was talking about what black people deserve as it relates to reparations. And so let me put this back up as a reminder to you. Black people reparations is a debt. And the problem I had with what she said to the young brother is because I felt that she disrespected. To me, it was a disrespect, that it was marginalizing, underestimating, undervaluing our plight, our situation, our movement towards reparations. And I know that there's people out there, black people out there, that's going to laugh and giggle at this tonight and say, oh, y'all ain't never going to this, you ain't going to never get that, you ain't going to never get that. But remember, even Dr. King said at one point in time, it's time to cut that check. Remember he said that? Check that out. He said, when we come to Washington, he said that when Europeans came to this country, they had land grants given to them. They had land set aside for them. They had all these programs that were set aside for them. Nothing for black folks. And he said, when we're coming to Washington, D.C., we're coming for our check. See, a lot of us are used to listening to the Dr. King who talked about dreaming. Read the letters from Birmingham, how Dr. King got into the asses of this country. Matter of fact, before he died, he was going to go on a boycott against Pepsi Cola, all these different corporations, see? But that's why Dr. King they had to assassinate him, because he was changing public policy. Let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. Neely Fuller Jr. said this when I was listening to something that he was talking about one time. He said that black people have always had spokespersons, right? Whether it be Malcolm X, Dr. King, we've always had a spokesperson. That's not what they fear. They don't fear the spokesperson only this way. They only fear the spokesperson if the spokesperson is moving the crowd, meaning if Dr. King and Malcolm X are saying something that makes people get out there and start demanding justice, freedom, and equality, start demanding certain things, that's when that spokesperson becomes dangerous. If you are a spokesperson, but you don't move the crowd, you don't make people get out there and force the government to change public policy, then you don't become a danger. You don't become an enemy of the state until you move the crowd. because we've had plenty of black spokespersons who don't move the crowd and they're still alive. Nothing's happened to them until you actually move the crowd and get people doing things that becomes an interruption to the status quo system of this country. That's what Neely Fuller Jr. said. And Dr. King, before I leave, said these things. In America, the two most dangerous things in America is sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. What Jane Elliott did, as I conclude here, is she showed under what Dr. King just said, what I quoted from Dr. King, she was being conscientiously stupid. Not sincerely ignorant, because she knows damn well that black people were poorly treated, just like Native Americans, and that if Native Americans get something, why can't us? She spent all of her life talking about racism and white supremacy and discrimination, and so she's educated enough to know that we deserve those reparations that we are demanding for. But she showed conscientious stupidity, as Dr. King, I'm quoting Dr. King, when she told that young brother, bullshit. And you asking for reparations is just like you acting like white men. And first it's got to go to Native Americans who already are getting nice package deals that we don't get. With that said, everybody, I want to thank everybody for coming over to the show tonight. I was going to make it a hot show tonight. I hope I did not disappoint you all in the chat room. You know that you come over here, you're going to get a hot show when I go like this. Now, the way I was talking tonight is sort of what I do on the second channel, the Information Man Speaks podcast. So you got to check that out. Make sure you scroll down the page of my channel and click and subscribe and hit the bell notification, all of you on my podcast channel. And let me promote this. I might as well, while I'm at it, check out my podcast on these podcasting platforms.
Man Podcast.
Here we go.
The Information Man Podcast can be heard on 9 major platforms. On the second YouTube channel as well, Information Man Speaks Podcast. Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Castbox, SoundCloud, and finally, Spreaker.
Okay, everybody. What can I say? It's been quite a night tonight. I appreciate you all coming over. Thank you, Brother Aduvian. Thank you, Real Aaron Collins. Thank you for the super chat again, Sister B. Tiffany Jackson. RY came over. She says, good night. Good night to all of you, Fly C soldiers. To everybody, peace to you. And those of you that I did not call, I apologize. I will be back hopefully this Saturday with the brother on my channel. I'm going to make it do what I got to make it do, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you all coming out. We had a big crowd tonight. Take care. Love you, everybody. Peace.
Information is power.
Good night, everybody. Love everybody. Peace to you.
Information is power. Information is power.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information is power. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Information is power.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information Man
Tell
Show.
the truth. Tell the truth.
Do you want truth?
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
If you don't want truth, this is not the channel for you.
Tell the truth.
Information is power.
Tell the truth.
Yes. Truth.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
In the White House, I'm not gonna say his name. Jack Lake.
Tell the truth.
If you want truth,
Tell the truth.
the Information Show is the place for you. Truth.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make
We're trying to examine, open up one's mind, and understand the shit that's happening in American society and around the world. Information Man Show.
Information is power.
We gotta ring the bell to wake the world up.
Information is
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.